Hello Year 3-4 and welcome to today's home learning. The date today is Wednesday the 22nd of April and our learning objective is, can I write my problem and resolution for my story? For this lesson you will need a pencil, lined paper, your plan and our success criteria that we made on Friday. Our overall learning journey question is, can I recount, edit and retell my own version of the animation Dream Giver? We are now on to retelling our own version, and 2 days ago we made our plan. Today we're focusing on writing our problem and resolution of our story. Yesterday we wrote our opening and building, so the two sections we're going to focus on today are problem and resolution. If we start at our problem, we need to think about what problem arises and how does the problem affect our character. To do this, I'm going to use, like I did yesterday, the example you've been looking at in your reading. If we look at the first paragraph, from the thrill of space, the boy suddenly found himself in a beautiful, peaceful forest. Fluttering around the clearing, stunning butterflies of many colours landed on his finger. A calm smile spread across his innocent face. However, it was not to last for long. Loudly spreading towards him came a terrifying, ear-splitting growl, a sound that made the tree shake and his young heart stop. He was alone. Even the butterflies had gone. So we can see that this paragraph here is starting to introduce the problem. He hears a terrifying, ear-splitting growl, and we instantly think, what could it be? It also introduces how our character is starting to feel. His young heart stops. So that obviously makes us think that he's quite afraid. He was alone. So it's starting to introduce our problem. The next paragraph goes on into further detail about expanding our problem and making us feel like it can't be solved, making us feel like the boy's in really big trouble. With a fear that almost paralysed him, he tentatively turned towards the sound. Red eyes, which were long and narrow, glinted in the shadows of the trees. Then it emerged, a creature that would frighten even the bravest of warriors. All he could think about doing was running, so he did. He ran like his life depended on it. He ran through the trees, leaping over rocks, out into the bright sunshine, but still it chased. Turning back to check his path was clear, he realised his time was up. He had reached a precipice. Below him was a drop that no one could survive, and behind him lurked the monster. How could he possibly escape? So we can see that these two paragraphs together really help introduce our problem. It shows us what the problem arises and where the boy gets transported to, and then it starts to tell us how our characters react to the problem and how it affects our characters. It comes and then he's at the edge of a cliff. What could happen? Within this, Miss Pinder White has also used some fantastic ingredients from our success criteria. Here, a terrifying ear-splitting growl. It's a fantastic example of a noun phrase. Above it we have however, which is a fronted adverbial. We also have lots of great examples of punctuation, an ellipsis that creates tension, a question mark, an exclamation mark. So here she's also used lots of fantastic things from our success criteria. Now we're going to move on to our resolution. So now we've written our problem, we're going to move on to our resolution, and the two questions we have to focus on are, how does the problem become resolved and how does this affect our character? To do this, I'm also going to use the piece of writing from your reading. Back in the slumbering orphanage, the dream giver sensed a change. The boy was tossing and turning violently in his sleep, shouted and cried out for help. Rushing quickly over to see what was happening, the dream giver's troubled eyes detected the egg-covered horror story and realised his mistake. How was he going to correct this terrible disaster? This paragraph here is starting to introduce our solution. The dream giver realises there's something wrong and that he needs to try and correct his terrible mistake. This next paragraph then is going to be our resolution. With the death-defying cliff edge ahead of him and the enormous beast behind him, the terrified child gave up. He crumpled to the ground in a frightened ball, tears streaming from his hazel eyes and acceptance of certain death in his heart. However, he was suddenly aware that something had changed. Yes, the monster was still growling, but it no longer seemed to be getting any closer. Peeping carefully under his arms that had been shielding his eyes, he noticed some strange objects hurtling themselves at the earth around his attacker. What were they? They appeared to look like golden eggs. When they hit, thick steel-strong vines were growing rapidly, strangling and constraining the beast. Even before he could uncurl and assess the situation that was unfolding, where certain death had been just moments before, grew a colossal tree. Relief flooded through every vein and bone in his body. He collapsed on the floor in a deep, restful sleep. Here then, this paragraph answers those two questions. It tells us that the dream giver comes to the rescue by using the golden eggs. And it also tells us that the tree then grows over, strangling and constraining the beast. Here our resolution is offered, and at the end the piece of writing tells us how it affects our character. True relief, and he collapses on the floor in a deep and restful sleep. As you can see, both pieces of writing that we've looked at for our problem and resolution have answered these two questions. In both, they have used fantastic ingredients from our success criteria. I would like you to use your success criteria to check you are using these ingredients when you are writing, and I would like you to try and write your problem and resolution using these questions. Good luck, try your best, and I really look forward to seeing what you produce.